In the hushed suburbs, where family ties fray like old threads, Maya Ruiz arrives back at the home that once held her world together, now shadowed by years of silence and buried hurts. She's a woman armored in quiet resolve, her producer's life a shield against the vulnerability she fears most. Reopening wounds with a brother lost to distance and parents who taught her to lock emotions away. Yet something pulls her here, a whisper of what might mend if only the walls could speak, as the camera pans slowly across the faded facade of the Ruiz family home. The camera pans slowly across the faded facade of the Ruiz family home, a modest two-story in the quiet suburbs, its warm brick walls bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon sun filtering through overgrown oaks. Inside, the air hangs heavy, like a held breath, muted colors of worn furniture and half-drawn curtains casting long shadows that cling to the corners. Maya Ruiz steps through the front door, her suitcase thumping softly against the threshold, a producer's headset dangling from her neck like an anchor. She's dressed sharply, a crisp blouse over jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, but her eyes betray the flicker. Guarded, scanning the familiar space as if it might bite. Eli is there first, emerging from the kitchen with a mug of coffee in hand, his posture loose but distant, like a man who's learned to occupy space without touching it. "Maya," he says, voice even, offering a nod that's more acknowledgement than welcome. No hug, just the polite extension of a hand that she shakes briefly, their palms cool and dry. The camera lingers on the moment, capturing the awkward half-second where their gazes lock, his hazel eyes skittering away first, hers holding a beat too long, searching for the brother buried under years of surface chat. Clara appears next from the living room, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her silver-streaked hair tied back, face etched with the quiet endurance of someone who's carried too much without complaint. "Welcome home, mija," she murmurs, leaning in for a cheek kiss that's feather-light, obligatory. The scent of her lavender soap mixes with the faint mustiness of the house, stirring something deep in Maya's chest, a chill that settles like frost on glass. They stand there in the entryway, the three of them, exchanging small talk about the drive, the weather, the traffic, words skimming the surface like stones on water. No one mentions the elephant, the years of unanswered calls, the holidays skipped like bad dreams. The producer's voice cuts in softly from off-camera, mic'd and steady. "Welcome to Unspoken Ties, where families confront the silences that bind them." Tonight, the Ruizes open their home and their hearts for raw, unscripted confessions. No scripts, no interruptions, just truth. Maya nods at the lens, forcing a professional smile that doesn't reach her eyes, her fingers twitching at her side, as if itching to direct the scene. But as she glances toward the coffee table, her breath catches. There sits the old family photo album, its leather cover cracked and dusty, pages swollen with snapshots of birthdays and beach days, frozen smiles hiding the cracks that came later. Eli's eyes flick to it too, then away. Clara busies herself straightening a throw pillow. The silence stretches, thick and expectant, the cameras humming like watchful eyes. Maya's pulse quickens, a tense readiness coiling in her gut. Will she push, prod at the forbidden quiet that's kept them all safe for so long? The warm light from the window fights the shadows, but for now, the chill wins, and the question lingers unspoken in the air. As the family gathers in the living room, the camera lingers on the Ruiz living room, where soft afternoon light filters through lace curtains, casting elongated shadows across the worn wooden floor. Maya stands at the center, her hands clasped tightly before her, knuckles pale against the olive of her skin. The air hums with the low whir of equipment, cameras poised like silent sentinels, microphones dangling from the ceiling. Eli slouches on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, eyes flicking to the floor. Clara sits ramrod straight in an armchair, her fingers twisting the hem of her cardigan, the lines around her mouth etched deeper in the dim glow. Maya clears her throat, the sound slicing the quiet. Okay, everyone. Before we start, we need ground rules. This isn't scripted. No rehearsals, no lines. When someone speaks, we listen, really listen, without interrupting. No jumping in to defend or deflect. Her voice wavers at first, laced with the wary edge of someone who's spent years building walls. She glances at Eli, who shifts uncomfortably, and then at Clara, whose gaze hardens like she's bracing for impact. The unspoken hangs heavy. One wrong word, one habitual shutdown, and this fragile setup could crumble. Confessions dissolving back into the safe, shallow chatter they've all mastered. She steps toward the coffee table, where the old family photo album lies open, its faded pages splayed like a forgotten confession. Dust motes dance in the beam of light, catching its edge. A snapshot of toddler Maya and Eli, grinning gap-toothed in a sunlit park, Clara's arm around them both, her smile tight even then. Maya traces the binding lightly, her touch reverent. Every story here, it deserves space, respect. We've buried too many under silence, thinking it keeps us safe. But today, we choose differently. Vulnerability isn't chaos. It's the only way through. Eli uncrosses his arms, leaning forward just a fraction, his brows furrowing, not in resistance, but curiosity. Clara exhales, a soft release, her shoulders easing as the room's tension uncoils like a spring. The lighting shifts subtly, the warm glow pushing back the shadows, cameras capturing the pivot. Nods exchanged, a tentative agreement forming, yet the air still thrums with the risk. What if the first raw truth triggers old defenses, pulling them back into isolation? With the rules set, the first confession begins alone. As the camera lens hovers close, an unblinking eye in the dim glow of the converted living room, where shadows from the half-drawn curtains cling to the walls like unspoken regrets. Maya Ruiz sits alone on the edge of a worn armchair, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, a small, futile barrier against the vulnerability creeping in. The vintage tape recorder rests on the side table beside her, its spools still, a relic from her childhood that the crew unearthed from the attic. It's there now, humming faintly as Dr. Annan suggested, a witness to capture what words alone might evade. She exhales, the breath shaky, captured in the microphone's unforgiving proximity. Silence has been her armor for years, a quiet fortress built from the ruins of family dinners, cut short by averted eyes and half-finished sentences. But the rules of this confessional episode demand more. No scripts, no interruptions, only the raw pulse of truth. The red light on the camera blinks like a heartbeat, urging her forward, while her mind screams, retreat. What if this cracks her open, only to leave her exposed, confirmed as the outsider she's always feared? I need to start with me, Maya murmurs, her voice threading through the hush. The words feel foreign, heavy on her tongue, as if dragging them from a locked chest. There's this regret that's been eating at me, like watching colors fade from a painting you once loved. After Dad left, I stopped feeling things fully. I buried it all, the hurt, the confusion, because showing it meant risking more loss. And the fear, God, the fear of being rejected again. Like if I let you all see the scared girl underneath, you'd turn away for good. Her chest tightens, a protective instinct clawing to pull her back into silence. But the tape recorder whirs to life as she leans forward, pressing record with trembling fingers. The mechanical click echoes, sealing her in. Eli, Mom, I've been so afraid that my emotions would push you further. But hiding them, it's just made the distance grow. The admission hangs, cautious tendrils of openness unfurling where walls once stood. Her eyes glisten, not with tears yet, but with the possibility. The camera lingers on her face, the soft light catching the subtle quiver of her lip. In this moment, her words dangle like an olive branch extended into the void. Will they draw her family closer or snap back unanswered? Following Maya's solo moment, the family convenes with the therapist as the camera lingers on the dimly lit living room, where sunlight filters through lace curtains like hesitant confessions. Maya sits cross-legged on the worn sofa, her fingers twisting the edge of a throw pillow, eyes darting between her mother Clara, stoic in her armchair, arms folded like a shield, and brother Eli, slouched against the wall, gaze fixed on the floor. Dr. Priya Anand perches on a stool, her presence a calm anchor amid the room's stifling air. A vintage tape recorder squats on the coffee table between them, its spools still, a relic from the family's attic, dusted off for this intimate segment. Emotional honesty, Dr. Priya begins, her voice steady as a heartbeat, isn't some grand revelation. It's hygiene for the soul. Think of it. Just as you brush away plaque to keep your teeth from rotting, you clear out the unspoken resentments before they fester into isolation. But here's the key. Listening without defense. It's giving language to your feelings, not as weapons, but as bridges. Clara shifts, her lips pressing into a thin line, the uncertainty etching deeper furrows in her brow. Feels like inviting chaos, she mutters, voice low, intellectual armor glinting. A deflection, but Dr. Priya doesn't flinch. Eli glances up, his knuckles whitening on his knee. The fear hangs thick. What if hearing the raw truth demands they drop their guards? Maya feels it too, a knot in her chest, the old lie whispering that silence is safer. Yet Dr. Priya leans forward, eyes warm. Imagine this tape recorder, she says, clicking it on with a soft whir. The reels spin lazily, capturing the room's hush. It doesn't argue back. It just holds the sound, your pain, your care, without interruption. When you listen that way, without snapping shut like a clam, you're saying, I see you. Pain shared isn't attack, it's invitation. The whir fills the pause, a mechanical witness to their thawing. Maya's breath evens, uncertainty yielding to a flicker of trust. Her shoulders easing as Clara's folded arms loosen, just a fraction. Eli meets her gaze, the air humming with possibility. Can they hear the ache beneath words as an act of love, undefended? The tape rolls on, unanswered, propelling them toward the booths waiting beyond the door. Inspired by the therapist's words, Eli shares, next, as the camera lingered on the worn wooden table in the Ruiz living room, where soft afternoon light filtered through lace curtains, casting elongated shadows that danced like unspoken words. Eli sat across from Maya, his hands fidgeting with the edge of a faded placemat. The vintage tape recorder, pulled from the attic that morning, humming faintly between them, its reel spinning slowly, capturing every breath. The crew had faded into the background, But the red light on the device blinked insistently, a mechanical witness to the fragility unfolding. Eli's voice broke the hush first, low and unsteady, like a crack in dry earth. I've kept this distance because it's how I survive, Maya. Opening up, it feels like handing someone a knife. Every time I think about getting close, I see rejection waiting. Yours, Mom's, anyone's. But I don't want that anymore. I want to understand you, really understand. Not just the surface stuff. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of years unspoken. Maya's chest tightened, that familiar internal tension coiling like a spring. Her instinct to retreat, to wrap silence around her like armor. The camera zoomed in subtly, catching the flicker in her eyes, the way her fingers gripped the armrest. She could feel the room's warmth pressing in, the faint scent of chamomile tea from the kitchen, mingling with the musty pages of the old photo album nearby. Part of her screamed to deflect, to nod politely and move on. But Eli's gaze held hers, raw and pleading. No accusations, just a quiet invitation. Her throat worked, a tremor starting in her voice as she leaned forward, the words spilling out before she could pull them back. I've been scared too, Eli. Scared that if I let you in, you'll see how much I've carried this resentment, how I've felt like the outsider holding it all together. But hearing you say that, it doesn't push me away. It makes me want to try. The tension eased, not all at once, but in cautious ripples, like water settling after a stone's drop. Eli's shoulders dropped, a small nod validating her words before he spoke again, his tone softer now, threaded with emerging trust. The tape recorder whirred on, etching their vulnerability into something tangible, a bridge forming where walls had stood. In that shared gaze, the fear lingered, not as a threat, but as a question. Could they hear each other's trembling as a call to connect, rather than a cue to run? The camera pulled back slowly, the room's shadows softening, as if the light itself dared to believe. Turning to her mother, Maya presses further, as the camera lingers on the dining table, where unlit candles stood like forgotten sentinels amid the scattered remnants of a half-eaten lunch, crusts of bread, a wilting salad. Soft afternoon light filtered through lace curtains, casting elongated shadows that seemed to pull Maya and Clara closer, yet held them apart. Maya sat rigid, her fingers tracing the edge of a napkin, the air thick with the scent of cooling chamomile tea. Stiffness clung to her posture, a familiar armor, as she searched her mother's face. "Mom," Maya began, her voice soft, deliberate, like testing thin ice. "The show's about us opening up, about the sacrifices you've made, leaving your job, moving us here after Dad left. It wasn't just duty, it cost you something real. Can we talk about that? On camera." Clara's hands paused, mid-fold of a dish towel, her knuckles whitening. She glanced at the candles, their wicks untouched, as if they mirrored the unignited truths between them. "Sacrifices," she echoed, the word flat, echoing the stoic lessons of her youth. "That's what families do, Maya. We carry them quiet. Strength isn't in spilling it all. It's in holding steady, so the rest don't break." Her eyes, lined with years of unspoken endurance, flicked away, toward the window, where the garden bloomed indifferently. Maya leaned in, her breath catching, the stiffness in her chest cracking just a fraction. She wanted to push, to shatter the veil, but the rules of the show, and something deeper, urged gentleness. "I know it kept us together, but holding it all, doesn't it weigh on you? I see it in your eyes sometimes. Let me acknowledge it, Mom. Let us all see how strong that made you, and how hard, Clara's lips press thin, a subtle retreat, her body angling away as if the words tugged at frayed threads. Yet in that shift, a flicker, her gaze returned, softer, catching the plea in Maya's voice. The room hummed with the camera's quiet whir, amplifying the pause. Pain bloomed quietly in Maya's throat, not sharp, but insistent, a growing ache that mirrored the shadows deepening around the table. Clara reached out, not quite touching her daughter's hand, her voice a murmur. Quiet kept us safe, mija. But maybe it's heavier than I thought. The unlit candles waited, their potential warmth untouched, as the silence stretched, not protective now, but laced with the raw edge of hidden grief. What was worth more, clinging to that old resilience, or finally naming the toll it exacted? Deepening the shared reflections, the family turns to the album as the camera lingers on the scarred wooden table where the old family photo album lies open like a reluctant confessor. Soft afternoon light filters through lace curtains, casting elongated shadows that dance across the pages as if the past itself is straining to escape. Maya sits at the center, her fingers tracing the edges of faded snapshots, the weight of them pressing into her skin. Eli slouches to her left, arms crossed, his gaze flicking away whenever a memory threatens to surface. Clara, opposite, smooths her apron with mechanical precision, her lips a thin line against the tide of unspoken years. Maya turns a page, the stiff cardboard whispering like a held breath. There, a photo from the summer of '98, the three of them on the porch swing, Eli mid-laugh. Maya's arm slung around Clara's waist, but the smiles are brittle, edges frayed by what came after. The argument that shattered the evening, words swallowed whole and never regurgitated. The image stares back, heavy as an anchor, pulling the room into silence. Eli shifts, his foot tapping a defensive rhythm. Clara's eyes dart to the window, the old habit of retreat, blooming like frost on glass. The camera catches it all, the involuntary pause, the risk of the new ritual crumbling under the photo's indifferent gaze. One interruption, one deflection, and the fragile rules they swore to, listen without defense, validate before responding, could shatter. But Maya doesn't let go. Her voice emerges soft, threaded with the ache she's carried too long. "Look at this," she says, tapping the photo, her control slipping like sand. "We were right there, all of us, but I remember freezing. I wanted to say how scared I was, how your silence after Dad left made me think I wasn't enough to hold us together." The words hang, raw and unpolished. No humor to shield her now. She meets their eyes, the album a bridge between her vulnerability and their guarded stares. "What if we replay it? Imagine we're back on that swing. What would you say now if we could finish what we started?" Eli uncrosses his arms, surprise flickering in his eyes, a crack in the surface. I laughed to cover it," he admits, voice low, the first time he's leaned in without pulling away. "Thought if I kept it light, we wouldn't lose you too." Clara nods slowly, her hand reaching across to touch the photo, the gesture tentative, warming the chill of memory. "I was strong for you both," she murmurs, the stoicism fracturing. "But it cost us words. I'm sorry for the quiet I built around us." The air shifts, heaviness yielding to a cautious warmth, like embers stirring under ash. The camera pulls back slightly, framing their faces in the glow. The album no longer a shutter, but an invitation. Words long blocked now trickling free. Can this replay, this frozen moment thawed, truly unlock what silence sealed? The question lingers, unanswered, as the page turns. As evening falls, the unplanned dinner unfolds. with the dining room glowed faintly under the soft pendant light, shadows pooling in the corners like unspoken regrets. Maya, Eli, and Clara settled around the scarred oak table, the air thick with the scent of cooling paella and chamomile tea. No cameras hummed now, just the three of them, raw and exposed in the quiet aftermath of the day's confessions. Plates clinked tentatively, forks scraping porcelain as if testing the fragile piece. Maya's fingers hovered over the unlit candles at the table's center, their wicks dark and expectant, wax pillars standing sentinel amid the half-empty wine glasses. Her heart thudded, a cautious rhythm, guarding against the old pull of silence that had always kept them safe, separate. "What if we light these?" she said, voice steady, but laced with the weight of invitation. Not for show, just to let some light in, to see each other, really. Eli paused, his fork midway to his mouth, eyes flicking to the candles, then away, the familiar avoidance flickering across his face. Clara, ever the stoic anchor, smoothed her napkin, her lips pressed thin. The room held its breath. The fear of old shadows loomed, threatening to drag them back into passive nods and surface chatter. But Maya struck the match anyway, the flame sputtering to life with a hiss. One candle, then another, casting warm flickers that danced across their faces, softening the lines of tension. I'll start," Maya murmured, the firelight catching the vulnerability in her eyes. "I've carried this resentment, toward how we all just shut down after Dad left. It made me feel like the outsider, always." She exhaled, waiting, the rule of listening wrapping around them like an invisible thread. No interruptions, just presence. Eli leaned forward, the caution in his posture easing as the glow warmed his skin. "I get that," he said softly, validating before his own words tumbled out. "I avoided it all because I thought speaking up would just break us more. Like rejection was waiting." His voice cracked, but he held her gaze, the candle flames steady witnesses. Clara's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her glass, the light illuminating the faint sheen in her eyes. "You've both been so strong," she began, her tone thawing from guarded reserve to something tender, accepting. "I suppressed it for years. My fears, the sacrifices, thinking it kept us whole. But hearing you, it doesn't. It just leaves us in the dark." The conversation unfurled then, cautious exchanges, blooming into shared breaths, laughter threading through the ache. Flames licked higher, illuminating not just faces, but the fragile bridges between them. Stories spilling without accusation. Silences filled with nods of empathy. Yet beneath the warming acceptance lingered the unspoken question. Were they truly ready to stay in this light, defenses down, or would the shadows call them back? In the deepening glow, Clara's breakthrough emerges as the dining room glowed under soft lamplight, the camera's lens lingering on the half-eaten plates and the unlit candles scattered across the table like forgotten promises. One candle, its wick charred and black, stood sentinel in the center, a burned-out relic from earlier attempts at warmth, now just a stub of wax pooling in defeat. Clara Ruiz sat rigid at the head, her hands clasped tight around a water glass, knuckles whitening as the weight of silence pressed in. The family rules hung in the air. Listen without interruption. Validate before responding. But Clara's chest tightened, a knot of anxiety twisting deeper. To speak now meant peeling back the stoic facade she'd worn for decades, the armor of the unbreakable mother. What if it shattered everything? Her respect, their fragile harmony. Eli and Maya watched, Breaths held, the room's shadows deepening the lines on Clara's face. She set the glass down with a faint clink, her voice emerging like a whisper from the dark. I've always thought strength meant holding it all in. The sacrifices, the hurts, they were mine to carry, so you wouldn't have to. Her eyes flicked to the burned-out candle, as if it mirrored the fire she'd let consume her alone. But that wasn't strength. It was fear. Fear of being weak, of showing you how scared I was to love you all imperfectly. I'm sorry, Maya, Eli, for the love I never said out loud. It wasn't because I didn't feel it. It was because I was terrified it would break me. The words hung, raw and trembling, her shoulders hunching as anxiety clawed at her throat. Would they see her as frail now, diminished? The camera caught the quiver in her lip, the way her gaze darted, searching for judgment in their faces. Maya leaned forward, her own guarded heart cracking open in response. No accusations, no pulling away, just a soft nod, eyes steady with the understanding she'd fought so hard to claim. Mom, I hear you. That fear, it's what kept us all apart. But saying it now, that's the real strength. It doesn't take anything away. It makes us closer. She reached across the table, her hand hovering near Clara's, an invitation rather than a demand. Maya sits at the head, her fingers tracing the edge of an old family photo album, its pages whispering of buried stories. Eli leans back, a faint smile cracking his guarded expression, while Clara's eyes, usually steel, soften in the glow of unlit candles, now flickering alive, one by one, as if ignited by the confessions that just spilled out. Dr. Priya Anand steps into frame, her calm presence a steady anchor amid the crew's hushed movements. She settles into a worn armchair, the vintage tape recorder on the side table blinking its red light, still capturing every word like a vigilant witness. Vulnerability isn't a one-time leap, she says, her voice even, eyes meeting each of theirs. It's a choice you make again and again. Tonight, you've chosen to listen, to let the truth breathe. But the real test? Carrying that choice forward, beyond these lights. Relief washes over Maya first, a deep sigh escaping as she glances at Eli, their shared gaze holding the weight of his earlier fear laid bare. No interruptions, just nods, validation in the space between words. Yet, beneath it, the pull tugs, the old habit of silence, safe and familiar, whispering to retreat, to let harmony paper over the cracks. Clara's hand hesitates on her teacup, her stoic mask flickering. Will she slip back into suppression or claim this new rhythm? I don't want to hide anymore, Maya says, her voice steadying from tremor to resolve, breaking the hush. This, us talking, really talking, it's not a risk we survive. It's the choice that keeps us. Eli nods, reaching for the tape recorder, thumbing its play button briefly. A snippet of his own raw admission echoes softly, binding them. We'll do this again, he murmurs. No scripts, just us. Clara leans forward, her fingers lighting the last candle. Yes, we listen. We choose. The family murmurs agreement, smiles deepening into something resolute, the camera pulling back to capture the circle closing. Not perfect, but chosen. As Dr. Annan wraps her thoughts, emotional honesty? It's your freedom. Practice daily. The red light blinks on, etching their promise into permanence. The episode fades on those quiet faces, hope threading the air. But in the unspoken pauses, the question lingers. Will they keep choosing truth or let silence reclaim its throne?